Hey, let's get up. Todd here in Munich, Germany, and I want to tell you today why funny guys don't get laid. Now, there's a common myth that being funny helps you get girls. In fact, if you ask most girls what they're looking for in a guy, they'll say, I want a guy who makes me laugh. Well, there's a big difference between making her laugh and being funny. One is a passive thing, and the other is an active thing. As soon as you're in the frame of trying to make her laugh or trying to do anything for that matter, you're in big trouble and you tend to fall into what we call dancing monkey mode. In order to understand this concept, you have to think about what trying to be funny implies. If you were a king of a country, if you had everybody's validation at all times, if people would follow you no matter what, would you bother to try and be funny? Would you bother to put in that extra effort? I would argue that you actually wouldn't, because you don't need to. So the very fact of trying to be funny, the very fact of trying to entertain or trying to amuse someone in any way, shape, or form automatically conveys that their world is more important than yours, that you are in some way sort of lower value. This speaks to a general game concept, which is the concept that less is more in game. There's a great Tyler quote back in the day. He said, don't say what you can nod, don't nod what you can wink, don't wink what you can smile. The idea being that if you can get the same message conveyed with less effort, with less try hard, it's more powerful and more compelling. The other part of this is that game should just happen. If it seems to a girl in any way like you tried to sleep with her, or like she allowed your efforts to work in some way, as opposed to it just being a consequence of one thing led to another, all of a sudden you're going to run into things like last minute resistance, anti-sled defense, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so again, game should appear low effort and like it just happened. And when you're trying to be funny, this is inherently the opposite of what you're doing. So you might say the inherent problem here isn't being funny, it's being try hard. And in a sense, you're actually right. However, when you adopt a certain behavior, when you show a certain behavior on an ongoing basis, people assume that's how you've lived your life. When you show the capability to be funny, you're indicating to people that that's a coping mechanism that you've had throughout your life. So you're indicating to them that you felt the need to be entertaining and be try-hard. So in a way, it actually is, in and of itself, even beyond the try-hardness, a subcommunication, an honest signal of low value, because it indicates you've had to be funny to get by in life. So I hear you out there on the other side of your computer screen telling me, Todd, you're wrong. Humor does work. I've used it. And plus, I've heard from tons of other people in the pickup community that humor is actually one of the things you should strive for in game. Well, let me address that. The reason most people cite for humor being good is that humor shows that you are unstifled. It shows that you are present in the moment enough, you are out of your head enough to come up with something witty, clever, on the spot, right? And or if you're telling a joke, you're sort of like entitled enough to take the social pressure of having attention on you. And these are all sort of valid points. However, they only work to a point, okay? These things, being unstifled, taking the social pressure on yourself, they do serve to show that you are non-uncool, but they do not in and of themselves make you cool. There is a difference. It's sort of, in a way, a leveling behavior. It shows that you're not a lame guy. It shows that you're not so socially incompetent you can't be funny, but it doesn't necessarily get you to that upper echelon of I don't even need to be funny. There are also two inherent problems with humor on a technical level, even beyond how it makes you feel and what it shows in terms of the sort of effort you're putting into the interaction. Firstly is that humor is a high energy behavior, and high energy is not congruent with sexual tension. It's not congruent with making the girl chase and making the girl participate and comply, etc., etc. Also, when you run the set at a high energy level, you're making the set harder to hold because you have to maintain that high energy level rather than being able to relax and run it at a low energy. Remember that girls don't respond to their emotional state, they respond to the change in their emotional state. So if you're coming from a high energy place, it's hard to change upwards, it's very easy to change downwards. Lastly, on a technical level, the easiest way to be funny is actually oftentimes to be self-deprecating, to make fun of yourself, to poke fun at yourself, to act a little bit like a doofus or an idiot. And that is never, ever, ever the high value behavior because it's inherently pointing out your low valueness. So that's another trap that guys fall into. So let's come full circle here for a second and talk again about that idea of girls want a guy that can make them laugh. If being funny isn't the answer, why is that said, and what is the right way to make a girl laugh? Okay, so how does a high value guy make a girl laugh? Well, number one way is actually through sexual tension. A lot of times laughter is not due to something being funny, but it's due to a release of nervous energy. So if you are putting a lot of sexual tension on the girl, if the girl feels as though she's unentitled to you, or feels like unworthy of you, or that like you have a very strong presence that she hasn't quite like come to grips with, a lot of times she will giggle or even laugh, even when you're saying things that aren't very funny, because that's her response and a way to relieve the sexual tension. So in a way, when girls say, I want a guy that makes me laugh, they're not saying I want a guy who's funny, they're saying I want a guy who is a little too high value for me. I want a guy who I inherently don't quite deserve, right? So that's part one. Part two is that your humor, when you are overtly funny, it has to truly and really just happen. It cannot be try hard in any way. If it really does, if it is true and honest self-amusement because you're actually self-amusing, not because you learned that self-amusement gets girls, not because you learned that self-amusement pushes a button, not because you learned that self-amusement puts you in state, but if you truly are inherently amused by something and you say it with no desire for a reaction and it just happens to be funny by accident, then it's all the better. But if there's even a little bit of try hard, a little bit of reactiveness in it, it's not inherently the highest value behavior. But tonight, when you're out in the field and you feel that sort of nervous awkwardness where you're like, oh, the set's not going well enough, oh, she's not laughing, oh, I'm not getting enough of a reaction, you're gonna feel that urge to push a button, to be funny, to do something a little try hard and a little reactive, because what you get when you do it is this little bit of like short-term energy, this little emotional, oh, it's going better, oh, she's reacting to me, and it feels good in that moment, but it's inherently contrary to running a good set. So what I want to encourage you to do in that moment is relax, like just allow the tension to be there, be okay with it, and make her game you. Just give it a few seconds longer than you want to, and let her contribute to the set, instead of being the guy who has to try, who has to qualify, who has to sell himself, all right? Give it that extra minute. So when you're in that moment, and you really want to just have that good emotion in the moment, I want to encourage you, sit back, relax, be okay with the tension. You will lose some sets because of it, but in the long run, it's necessary to take your game to a truly elite level. You have to be okay with silence. You have to trust that you're enough even when you're not being entertaining or funny. This whole issue of avoiding being too entertaining and too funny in set is actually something that was a huge obstacle for me to overcome, because I first learned game in a structured, formal way where we were actually doing routines and it was comedically tight and you knew the exact moments when you were going to make a joke and push a girl's buttons. And to an extent it worked, because again, being funny, holding the frame, it is non-uncool, but it's not quite at that level of cool. It's inherently reactive. So what I found when I was doing this type of game is that it was inherently difficult to escalate because the energy wasn't there. It was also difficult to hold the set for a long period of time because you had to maintain that high energy the entire time. So Tyler actually suggested a drill to me, which was go out and be literally as non-reactive as you can be in set. In fact, every time you want to say something that you think is clever, intentionally don't say it. Every time you want to say something that's funny, intentionally don't say it. Do not make any effort to get a laugh. In fact, what he told me at the time was literally run the set at the lowest energy level you possibly can. Take it to that point where it's like she's right on the border of leaving, and then only if you think she's legitimately going to cross that border do you put in any effort whatsoever to the set. And when I did this, I did lose a lot of sets at first. But what I found was the girls that stayed around, the girls that hooked off of that, hooked much harder, and they would follow me all night. And the sets would actually really go somewhere. And over time, I've learned to do it without losing the set as well. And that's when my game reached a truly elite level.